What's going on, guys? Vulkan here, and today we have some new patch notes for New World Update 1.0.5. Now, these patch notes are pretty big and they contain a lot of things that were really either annoying to deal with that New World is finally kind of approaching to take care of, as well as some of the highly requested items. So let's go through it. So starting at the very top, we have our general and we have coin sellers. Now, if you've logged into New World between launch and today, you've seen coin sellers basically dominating general chat or global chat. And it was to the point yesterday where I saw more coin sellers that I had to block than I saw player messages, because it was just insane at the rate that they were posting these things. So up until this point, basically the rule of thumb was just block the accounts, because reporting and doing all of those things just doesn't work because Amazon doesn't do anything about them. Well, today they're changing that narrative because they're going through and they're banning all of those accounts that were created and reported on for selling gold. So we can see here we have a couple different bullet points to roll through, and they've made some changes to make things a little bit more difficult for these gold sellers. So one, banned and suspended accounts on many of the reported accounts. So now we need to start actually reporting and not just blocking. So continue doing that. And then they also added restrictions to prevent player-to-player trading and currency transfers from any characters under level 10 or whose account is less than 72 hours old. I think this is a really good play, because one, they have to level through the entire process. To get into level 10 takes roughly 45 minutes if you know what you're doing, maybe a little bit over an hour if you don't. And so again, it's just going to slow down that whole gold selling aspect. And then we also have an account that's less than 72 hours old, so at least 3 days of an account being alive before you can actually transfer currency from one to another. Now, is this going to completely get rid of gold sellers? No, not at all. In fact, they can still make a level 1 account to spam everything, right? And then you can go and actually, they can have a mule that has all of the gold on it, but hopefully this will help discourage and reduce some of that spam or some of those transactions that are happening. And then kind of continuing onwards, right? They also redistributed the coin value from early quests to later in the main story quest line. So this is one of those other changes we saw on the forums a little while ago, but this at first glance, right, seems like, oh, well, you're going to be even more poor early on. And that's kind of the case. But what we're going to see here is all those coins delivered later on in the quest line versus right up front. So yeah, instead of getting 500 gold for completing a quest, maybe you'll get 150 gold. And then as you get higher in level, the missing gold will be given on those later quests. So instead of a quest giving you 500, instead you'll get 750 or 800 or 900. So those will just be different things to look out for. And if you create a new character, just understand you'll have less gold than you did before. And honestly, this makes sense, just from a design philosophy as well. When I first started New World, I felt like I had a ton of gold right out of the gate. I mean, on day one, I was sitting around 8 or 9K, and from farming, from quests, and all that stuff. So it felt like I had way too much gold. So this is something I think is going to be good for both the coin sellers, but also just a state of progression for the game. And then trading post usage will be restricted until new characters accept the introduction to the trading post quest after their first settlement. Again, I think that's a good play. So they're going to continue to monitor this. Great. And then we can move into exploits and combat. So these are two really big ones right now. In terms of exploits, there are quite a few. They have a running list of things that they're kind of tracking. But right now, the two they're targeting with this patch is being able to duplicate items and being able to duplicate gold. And they fixed the duplicate items one. And then on the gold dupe on territory projects, it looks like they're introducing or they're disabling trading and making sure it won't occur in the future. Should we need to disable trading again? So that's something to keep out. So it looks like they just fixed both of these, which is great. So no more gold duping, no more item duping. Then moving into combat, there's some really, really good stuff in here. So one, life staff, orb of protection. This has been kind of a thorn in Amazon's side for a while, but they removed the small area of effect that was triggering on pass through from every hit of the base version of orb of protection. So obviously this is going to be a performance thing, but it's also going to be an overpowered thing. Then AoE no longer triggers on pass through from the Aegis upgrade. Obviously it only triggers on the impact against the enemy or target now, which is how it should have operated from the beginning. These ones I'm really excited for. So reducing the attribute respec coin cost by 60%. Right now it is at 500 gold, and by reducing it by 60%, it's going to be sitting at 300 gold. So this is going to help a lot when it comes to actually flipping your character from one attribute to another. I went and did that the other day. I really wanted to roll my original idea of going spear musket. I really like that play style, and I just feel like that really fits me a lot better. So I rolled from strength to dexterity, and that was a 500 coin cost. And you know, those are type of things that they cause you some pause, right? Do I really want to spend 500 coin in order to flip this over? You know, do I really have the gear for it? And it's just kind of a chicken and egg scenario where you kind of, do I want to have the stats and then get the gear, or get the gear and then have the stats? It's just one of those things. So I think this is going to help ease that burden a little bit. And especially for new players who hit 60, who maybe went through and they were kind of just clicking through and adding attributes wherever they wanted, kind of willy-nilly. This will help them. Okay, I'm 60. Let's go ahead and let's reset, and let's pick what I really want to kind of truly follow. Now it's an easier decision to do that. Same thing with the weapon mastery Azoth cost. They reduced that by 75%. So I know at one point it was like 20 Azoth or 12 Azoth. I don't really respect my weapon masteries too often, but reducing that cost by 75% obviously is going to be a positive. And then they also reduced the coin cost of chisels by 20 to 50% depending on tier, which is fantastic. This is another thing, right? Because right now you have to obviously go craft tuning orbs, all of those things in order to get into expeditions. So being able to reduce the cost of chisels will then encourage players to make more tuning orbs, which will allow them to run more expeditions, which will give them more stuff to do at end game, as well as early and mid game. But end game is really the big focus here. So I really like that coin cost reduction. So kind of moving through here, we also have, they're trying to encourage competition in Outpost Rush, right? So they reduced the coin and Azoth rewards for the losing team, which is great. I think this is probably a misstep, in my opinion, because especially right now, right? Because there are issues with exploits, there are issues with people abusing certain systems, and now you're kind of forcing those players in the spirit of competition. I get what they're trying to do, but you're forcing those players to then use those exploits or go in that direction in order to remain competitive, because if you don't, you're going to get less coin and less Azoth, and it's just not at a point. I think this is a little too early. I think if they had gotten everything fixed and buttoned up, then absolutely, of course, the losing team should get less than the winning team. But right now, I feel like there's not enough people playing Outpost Rush. There's too many exploits out there. There's too much, the water's a little too choppy, per se, in order to kind of go through and say, we're going to reduce the rewards. So I think they should have probably went the opposite direction and improved rewards. That way you can get more people actually in Outpost Rush to play the mode. Identical weapon equipping. So players can no longer equip weapons of the same type in both weapon slots. We want each weapon slot to have a different weapon type to open up combat diversity. This change also addresses issues which could occur when swapping between weapons of the same type. This was people wielding double life staffs and then kind of rolling through and blowing stuff up that way and pulling off cooldowns. It was a little bit of a mess. And honestly, outside of that type of situation, I never really saw a need for identical weapon swapping. But it was kind of cool that it was possible. Maybe in the future, that can be like their dual wielding type of thing. If you equip two weapons of the same type in both slots, then, you know, you're a dual wielding character. So I'm not entirely sure, but for now, I think that's a good change. Group scaling passive, so fixed issues which could cause passive effects that scaled on a number of nearby foes, such as bloodlust against all odds and outnumbered to apply incorrectly. So again, this should help fix some of those hatchet exploits, the bloodlust exploit for Great Axe, and the outnumbered for Warhammer. These were scaling just infinitely. So the more enemies that were around you, whether they were players, whether they were actual like NPCs, the more they were around you, the more damage you would get. So this against all odds was insane because as you use the hatchet against enemies, your damage would scale up exponentially to infinity. You know, you would start out dealing, let's say, like 1500, and then the next enemy you'd be dealing 1900, the next enemy you'd be doing 2500, and then 3500, then 4500, then 6000, and it just got to a point where you were just, you know, not one-shotting everything, but pretty close. You were really just walloping anything around you. So I'm glad to see they actually got this fixed, because that will help with some of those Outpost Rush things as well as war things. Spell strike consistency. So it looks like they fixed some issues where they were causing several magic spells such as Ice Storm and Gravity Well not to hit consistently. This was a big issue that came from the last patch. So people were talking about my Fire Staff and my Ice Gauntlets AoEs aren't working. Whenever I drop them, it's just not doing damage. Ice Storm was a really big one. I saw that in Outpost Rush quite a bit, where people were trying to drop Ice Storm and it just wasn't working. In terms of Resilient, the item perk, it looks like they fixed an issue that caused the perk to reduce all damage instead of just damage from critical hits. Yeah, so this was another problem. You could stack Resilient and it reduced all of your damage. So all of the faction gear that you had that people were trying to farm up really quick, you would have that Resilient, reduce damage, you know, from critical hits by 4.8%. This was actually reducing all damage taken by 4.8% stacking, and you could get up to like 50% reduced damage. It was crazy. So I'm glad they fixed that, and that should help even things out a little bit more. And looks like they fixed an issue that allowed PvP and PvE players to heal each other, which, yeah, that'd be a problem. You're in PvP battles and a non-flagged player runs up and is healing you guys. Okay, so let's move into Outpost Rush. So it looks like they fixed an issue that was allowing players to get out of the starting fort before the match starts. I hadn't seen that, but obviously that's a problem. They now prevent multiple players from interacting with the altar in Outpost Rush. Good. This will prevent players from getting multiple summon tokens per 500. This was a huge issue. A huge issue. And honestly, I saw this so much in Outpost Rush from all the matches I played. You would just, like, you get 500 days off, and all of a sudden you'd have like 5 or 6 brutes running around, and it was horrible. And if your team didn't like focus on building a summons army, or, you know, a summons focused playstyle, then yeah, you really struggled. You really struggled, because those things are just thick and they take forever to take down. They do a ton of damage, and then next thing you know, you have 6 of them, 7 of them, and they're just pounding on your on that middle settlement, and it's just middle outpost rather, and it's hard. So seeing this get fixed really makes me want to jump back in Outpost Rush, because that was a big thing that was like, this is so frustrating. Looks like they also fixed an issue that sometimes caused the nameplates of summon allies to appear hostile, which is great. Cloak of Invisibility, Orb of Deception. Cool stuff there. Fixed an issue that was causing Battle Bread to be just twice as effective. Dang it. I need all the help I can get, so please revert that one. Update the tooltip for Battle Bread and Monster Slayer's Stew to properly describe the buffs they provide, which makes sense. Fix an issue that could cause players to become stuck in a teleport loop if they teleported out of Outpost Rush while using Unstuck. That's bad, so I'm glad they got that fixed. Okay, so that's Outpost Rush. Let's move into some general bug fixes. There's quite a few here, but let's go ahead and just roll down this list really quick. So they fixed an issue that prevented some people from joining Outpost Rush because they had a pending group invite, which group invites are really weird in this game. You can invite to group when you're already in a group, which will cause you to leave that group. You don't get like a, you know, flavor text that's like, hey, this person's already in a group. It just shows up. So yeah, it was kind of strange when I first dove in. That was just a weird kind of thing to get used to. Repair kits should no longer cost coin to use, which is good. Whole point of having a repair kit. They fixed an issue that sometimes caused players to use the wrong consumable. I've had this happen. That sucked. Fixed various issues with invasion status showing before the invasion was declared. Updated missing English text for login pop-up. For explaining the housing tax compensation. Yeah, when this first popped up, it just gave me like an @UI basically like script. I was okay, that's cool. It didn't say, hey, we're giving you money because of housing. It was just, I didn't know if it was bad or if it was good, if it was an error or not. So anyway, we got that. They fixed an issue allowing magic weapons to animation cancel their primary attacks with weapon swap or targeting spells, causing a rate of fire to be faster than intended. I had noticed that as well, so glad to see that getting fixed and normalized. And then they fixed an issue that caused Ice Gauntlet upgrade pylon dodge to only work immediately after you place the ice pylon, so again, just performance stuff. Fixed an issue that could cause a player to lose their house while offline during maintenance. I saw this in the global chat. That is rough. So yeah, one guy was like, I lost my house in Evanscale. Like I just don't have it anymore. It's just gone. And I was like, that's intense. So glad to see that getting fixed. Let's see, fix an issue with enemy AI duplicating and stacking spawns during the quest Shivering Timbers. I saw a ton of videos on this. People were out farming weapon mastery like crazy because you would get these high level enemies that you could literally go out and take care of, and they would stack and stack and stack. And I think one person mentioned they were able to get 40 ghosts going like super quick out on that particular quest, and you go out there and just blow stuff up. So it was almost a new farming method, but glad to see that get fixed. I think there's a few more out there too where the AI, this whole enemy AI duplicating thing is happening. Let's see, fix an issue that allowed players to initiate a server transfer if they were in the tutorial. Okay. Second they get in the tutorial, I hate it here. I'm gone. Fix an issue causing the trading post to become unresponsive or delayed. Thank goodness I haven't experienced that. Improved server performance when a large number of players congregate in settlements. This, thank goodness, because there's nothing worse than you're out running around the world and everything's fine, and you go into a settlement and you see a bunch of players just like chilling like in the middle of Windsward per se, and you run up and then you see just like the game tanks, and it's terrible. It reminds me of Wildstar in Thade. You'd be out in the world and everything would be good, and you'd go to Thade and your performance, like you'd go from like a rock solid 60 frames to like 30 maybe, and it just was awful. So I'm glad to see them get that fixed. Let's see, they also fixed an issue causing some territory influence not be properly recognized when lots of players turned in PvP missions simultaneously. I have seen that, so glad to see that get fixed. They also took care of some player titles showing as uninitialized, fixed an issue where players can become stuck while fishing with lag, UI notification for landing. Ooh, yay. Okay, this I like. Thank goodness, because this was so frustrating for myself as well as newer players coming in. This was a big thing that I saw in chat. People be asking questions all the time. Hey, how do I know if I'm fishing in a hotspot? Like I see, the hotspot, and there's fish jumping, but am I getting the bonus? Am I not getting the bonus? So I really like this. This is a solid fix. I missed that. They also fixed a localization issue where crafting bonus percentages for tools were displaying as 0% for non-English languages. They fixed the time in Europe to properly account for the change from CEST to CET. And lastly, they fixed an issue preventing gear score to increase past 589 from drop rewards. So a lot of really solid fixes here. And we also have one speculative fix. So they implemented a change to help us dig into the timed out while waiting for server to describe world issue, and added a fix to reduce occurrences of this issue. So strong stuff there. So overall, guys, I think this is just a rock solid update. I mean, they're going through, they're tackling those big ticket items. They're taking care of a lot of the stuff, the coin sellers, the exploits, some of the combat stuff that we're seeing. They're reducing the respec costs and cost of chisels. They're taking care of those scaling issues that we're running into. So as much as we want to drag, Amazon through the mud and say all this stuff should have been fixed and these are issues, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, they are really impressing me with the speed at which they're fixing these things and a lot of the accuracy that's coming with it. Now, with that being said, I'm also very disappointed that whenever we get a patch, it seems that 3 or 4 more things also break, right? This is kind of going back to the Outriders thing that we ran into, where an update would come out and you're like, oh man, it fixed this one thing that was really bothering me. Okay, now I have 3 other things that broke and I have to deal with now. And I don't want to say that's the state of game dev, but that's kind of the state of game dev where we're at right now in 2021 and going forward. Is these games are so complex. There's just a lot that's packed into them. So I have a little bit more leniency with things like that, but they need to get that dialed in, right? They need to rein it in. So here we are, we're over a month into this thing, and we need to start seeing some patches that roll out and fix a bunch of stuff and don't break a bunch of other stuff. Now, if it breaks 1 or 2 things, that's fine. I understand there's a lot of lines of code, but it needs to kind of start being a little bit more consistent and being largely positive than a mix of positive and negative. But I like this. I think it's good. I think it's going to help with Outpost Rush as well. So I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about this particular patch, these patch notes? Do you think this is something that is going to either bring you back or allow you to continue playing the game? It was your fix in here that you were, really like, man, I hate that this one thing is happening, but now they're fixing it. Let me know in the comment section below. But as always, thank you so much for all the support. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.